There are many secrets in the Bible. Some of them are right in front of our noses all the time, and they're still secrets. And some of them open up and invite you to be a spectator to one of the great worldwide secrets ever known. You may have read it many times, and you were impressed, and it said one thing or another. Perhaps now it may say still another thing to you. Before Abraham was, I am. That may have impressed you with the fact that the Christ was in the world before the foundations of the world. And he was. That he was not born in his mother's womb. And that's true. But it reveals many other things. It reveals something important for each of us. I'd like you to see now and to experience the fact that you are not where your body appears. See what comes of that, please, as you meditate on the fact that I am not where my body is. Because if you were, you'd be a very limited person, a very limited spirit, and there is no such thing. That's the beginning of our understanding of before Abraham was, I am. Where you are, the question is the you, where you are. How do you interpret that? Where are you? Do you think in terms of my body or my soul? If you're where your body is, that's the problem. That's the limitation. Let's try to rise now above the material body Who is this I am? Is it Jesus? Is it a limited consciousness? Before Abraham was, I am. Try to reach into the full scope of I am in your understanding. And realize that there was an individual, a Christ, who knew he was I am. And know the full scope of that word. And then try to crucify it. You see, we were hearing from another individual than anything we had ever known. I am is not body size. I am is infinite. And I am is Christ universal. And Christ universal was not a man who could be buried. Now, what's the importance of that? Armageddon has a meaning for you. It's where the human consciousness meets the divine. It's where the mortal consciousness meets the immortal. It's where the limited consciousness meets the infinite. And there comes a time when you're fighting that battle, and like the woman bearing the child, she won the battle because I am triumphed over all of the qualities of the world that were trying to stop her spiritual growth. When you face the world and the consciousness of the world, and you are trying to rise above the world, that battle is fought by each individual. The attempt to find the infinite consciousness and to live outside of the finite consciousness. The battle between the infinite consciousness and the finite, for you, is Armageddon. Each one goes through this battle, this struggle. There's no collective Armageddon. It's an individual battle. Each of us battles with the same foe. We're trying to attain our infinite consciousness. But there's a thing to be learned from it, and that is this. When you attempt to meet an obstacle and you're unsuccessful, it's because you're meeting it with the consciousness of a person. You're meeting with a finite consciousness another finite problem. You won't circumvent it that way. You won't overcome it that way. And now is the time to realize that you've got to develop the I am consciousness as it was uttered. When Christ said I am, he wasn't saying this limited person is. He was saying the infinite consciousness of the universe, I am. Now that is your goal, and it will remain your goal until you accomplish it, or else in the battle of Armageddon you will have to surrender. You must have the infinite Christ consciousness, or else you will surrender to the world mind. Now that's an extreme, specific case of what we are facing. And each individual must come to a comprehension of I am, not that I am something, but that I am that I, that is. My consciousness is infinite, and I cannot any longer stay in a finite consciousness. And when we have a little exercise that says, Find yourself not where your body is, not in that same place. That's the beginning of finding the I am consciousness. So I want you to take it very seriously, because there are some among us who are going to achieve this. There are some among us who will not achieve it at once. But each of us must keep seeking the infinite I until one day something happens. You just get the tail end of it, or the hem of the robe, but you get a start up the ladder. And I tell you, it's a struggle all the way. But you've got to make that struggle. I am is the infinite consciousness. It's the major secret of Christ consciousness. It isn't something that just hits you and you feel higher. It's the consciousness of all reality. And when we hear that simple phrase in the Bible, before Abraham was, I am, we hear the past, the present, and the future in I am. We hear all of spirit in I am. We hear divine law in I am. We hear the entire presence, the infinite presence of God. Infinite power, infinite intelligence, infinite harmony, infinite love. The complete, infinite universe is in those two words. When they are realized, we can speak them all day. Means nothing. When they are realized. And if you will make that not a daily tussle, but a frequent tussle, so that you are constantly looking to expand your I am consciousness, you will see that there is nothing that even approaches the success of that awareness. David looked at Goliath, but David was in the I am consciousness. Goliath was nothing. Christ in David was also I am. So you see, it's not confined to Jesus. It's the full reality of the universe. And when you touch it, another you is born. Another you. Divine. Now I believe that that's within the reach of every individual, or it would not be exposed to us. We pass it by, but it's still there. And when we stop and look and become conscious of the scope, we know we have been given one of the priceless pearls of the Bible. I don't know who on earth is conscious of I am, or how many people. I just know that I must go to I am until I get there. Nothing is more important. And there will be times when you feel that a new window is open. There will be times when you feel like you've got two left feet. But every time you attempt to find I am, you're getting closer. Now we're going to try. We're not where our body is. We have to find where I am is. That's where we are. And I can't find any place in the universe where I am is not. What an assignment. To be where I am is, and I am is everywhere. What holds us back? Well, there's a world mind, and it's going to fight. It doesn't want to lose control. It has the control of your mind. When you find I am, you're going to be free of the world mind. So it's going to battle. Now you're in the Armageddon battle. There will be a day when that world mind meets defeat. But it won't meet it accidentally. Hello? It won't meet it accidentally. It will meet it by transferring its awareness from the human mind past the world mind to I am mind. That is what Jesus meant when he said, I have overcome the world. I am in the I am mind. Even back in the Old Testament, when they had wars, they produced miracles. Nations were conquered with vast armies, and a man with very few people at his disposal was in the I am consciousness, and he disposed of vast armies. This is how we reach beyond human levels, beyond human understanding. Now let yourself find yourself. Leave your body behind. When the feeling comes that you are not held to the place where your body is, you're starting out. It's very possible at this point that you feel the existence of your spiritual body, that you have come into the awareness of it, in which case you're out of your physical body. But if you haven't, just stay a bit longer. Think of that Christ body which seemed to be in a tomb and wasn't. Think where it was when it appeared through the wall and came to the disciples. The body came, but there was no one in it. It was just an image expressing a consciousness that wasn't right where the body was. That appearance of body came from the infinite and appeared only to men as they could see. Had they had a different consciousness, the body that came through the wall would have looked different than it did. They weren't looking at the body of Christ. They were looking at an image made in their own minds. When you let go of the mind which puts a boundary on a body, you will make great strides. Do you see our method of communication on this level of earth is by what we can feel in the invisible? The scope of our feeling determines the length and the width of the things we see. And when we get out of the world mind which confines us to its recreation of time and space, then we are not bound by time and space. And the Christ body could appear as vast as the horizon, as it did to John, Peter, and James when he made his transfiguration. This must be held. It isn't done in a minute. There are people who, as they're dwelling in this level, are taken out of their bodies. Even our students. And they are told to look at this and look at that, and they look back and they see things that aren't there for other people. And we hear stories even within this seminar of things that have been seen, but not by the eyes of man. These individuals have found that they are lifted out of their bodies because they are lifted out of their minds. And their minds do not project a body. They are lifted into another mind. And that mind shows them different objects, but they are invisible objects. And that's the beginning of the I am consciousness. Whenever a vision comes to you and captivates you totally, you're out of your human mind. You're in the Christ mind, sometimes briefly, sometimes for a long period, and sometimes it seems longer than it is. But once having made penetration, having been gifted by this vision of either another world or a semi-world or something that is different than this world, you can be assured that the day will come when you're lifted still higher and you don't know where you are even. And you don't mind one bit. Now, as often as you can reach into this level of being in another world, you're out of your body. And that's vastly important. Because you're out of your body, you're out of human identification. And there's a very good chance that you'll stay in a little longer and become more used to it. You'll find that a brief time in humanhood can be an hour or two within. And you'll perceive many things in that space of time. And it'll just be a 2 or 3 minute, you won't know it because it seems like hours. But we're still looking for the infinite consciousness. As you dwell in this area, as you find the comfort of it, you'll notice that you'd rather be in it than not. That there's no conflicts, no warfare. And it is revelatory of new things. But there are things that have physical proportions. You see things, but they're not solid. They look solid. You think of them at the time of seeing them as solid, but it's spiritual imagery. And the idea is that in this level, you receive divine communication, the kind that you cannot receive in the human level. I feel safe in saying I'm not exactly in a human mind anymore. I'm just dwelling in the vastness of the spiritual universe. And at least if the Father wants to send any instructions, I'm there, and I can receive them. And perhaps you're there, and you can receive them. And we can even commune with each other in this level. But we're going to go still higher. We're in, you might say, a moderate level of the I am consciousness, where if I received anything from the infinite, I view it a little differently than I would in the human sphere. There's nothing I can receive that will be unfriendly, nothing that can be discordant. Everything has the same texture or feeling of harmony about it. And as you rest there, you're simply a receiver for what divine consciousness sends out. One day you'll find that you're more than a receiver. The divine consciousness absorbs you and you become divine consciousness. You see, that's when you're getting to the point of being I am. When you are divine consciousness and you have felt the scope of infinity within you, then I am is the infinite Christ in you. And from that level of awareness, you judge all things aright. Nothing can be less than the perfect fact. Everything in this level becomes an expression which appears harmoniously in the outer. You can't do anything that you're not proud of, for example. You wouldn't think at this point of cheating or lying or any of that nature, because this is a divine level. And even if there were difficult problems you couldn't solve in the world that you live in, you're not solving them from the body that is in a certain point, because that's what throws everything out of proportion for you. In fact, you're not solving them at all, but they're being solved. As you rest in this consciousness, you're waiting on the Lord. Your solutions are not material. You are absorbing the full glory of perfect spirit. And as it enters your consciousness, it translates into outer physical harmony. You see, you're getting it in the spirit, and it translates out into the physical. And without this, your life is limited to human judgments. In this level, all that you do is of the Father. Now let's try to go higher. It seems that the higher level seems to be more toward the top of your head. But actually, that's only a supposition. Your consciousness at this point is not in your head. It seems to be in your head, but you'll find that it's throughout the universe. And that universal consciousness is coming to you at the level of your head. It will go still higher, and you'll find that you're looking at your eyes backward. Your eyes seem to be turned around at a certain level, but they're not. Do you see how your scope is? Anything can happen. You are everywhere. You are tuning to the everywhere universe of the Father, and whatever is necessary for your experience is relayed instantly and emerges from the physical layers of your being in form. So please dwell there and know that the Father seeth in secret, but it shows forth openly. This is the truth about you. Each of us has this infinite capacity. And as we develop through this method, we go deeper and further until there's no separation, until we actually leave the body, leave the head, because there's no body or head to leave. I could give you a problem now, which would be a problem in the world, and you'd say, well, that's simple. I can handle that right now, because I'm not going to even think about it. Something's going to do my thinking. You'll find you're capable of a great deal that you're not capable of when you get back into a body consciousness. Here you see thought has no obstruction. You're reaching divine thought. It feels as if you're working from the brain, which may be just a limited sphere, and there's a funnel coming into it, which is wide, and that funnel comes into that little brain. And as you develop the higher consciousness, the funnel is as wide as the earth, and then as wide as heaven itself. And you find all of the divine law is working in that area in a miraculous way. You may think you can see things that you couldn't see at all at one time. You may think that the riddles of the universe are known to you. Here there is no division in which you dwell in good or evil, or in material sense. There's nothing that blocks you. Here your future becomes your present. And in this level, you can be the power of God expressing. There is nothing to oppose you. And you don't have to conquer a thing. It all flows within you very naturally. You may be getting solutions to things you've thought about a long time. And now it's so clear. Isn't it peculiar? You don't think of your loved ones. You don't think of people. You just wait and feel the presence of something mystical. Something that may be another universe. You may see angels, as some have. You may hear voices that you interpret as a voice from another planet. But beyond all this, your I am consciousness is expanding and expanding. And when you say I am, it won't mean what it meant before. Before Abraham was, I am. Has your I am consciousness reached before Abraham? Is all of that universe coming into you? Someday it will. It will reach 5,000 years into the future in a second. That's where the prophets get their information. They only see what is, but it comes out as future. What they see is now. This is the way you can solve problems. Because when solutions come from this level, they'll not only help you, but they'll help the people who are involved in your solution. They won't give one side of an argument. They descend into reality. They descend from that reality into the visible world, and somehow everyone is happy. Because they have a way of doing things that's not human. It's not my side or his side or her side. It's what's right in the spirit. Could we stay in this instead of taking an intermission? Let's try. Pardon? It took 2 minutes to have a 45, 50 minutes pass. That's because we were not in time. Now we'll rest again. Stay there. different level of thought from the divine. It is very important that you make yourself available to hear the still small voice. It carries with it the government of God. Any solution it makes is always perfect. To live without it is to live without God. Not that God only comes in the still small voice, but there is a necessity for communication from the God level to man. And when man is in the position to receive the still small voice, he is in a position to receive all kinds of divine thought, which never reaches earth unless there is a listening ear. Let him who has an ear hear what Spirit has to say. And that means that if you wish to fulfill the 7 keys of the Father, you must listen for the Spirit to divulge the width, the breadth, the height of those meanings, so that you're not limited to what you might think they mean. Jesus Christ was an open channel. He spoke, but he didn't. God was speaking through Jesus Christ every time he opened his mouth. God spoke through Jesus Christ when he received those instructions, and they came through him to John, who was speaking. When he stood on the earth and said the things he said, who was speaking? He told us it was his Father. And how did he speak? He spoke through his I am consciousness. An instantaneous translation of divine thought into words. There wasn't any question about the validity, the truth. And if men only knew, they would have laid down everything, got on their knees and said thank you. There wasn't a thing he could say to them that wouldn't be good and right for them. And the only thing that would be an obstacle would be self-will, or this concept that we carry of what things ought to be. When we get into this level, without self-will, without human thought, without human concept, we have nothing to oppose the will of the Father. We have nothing to judge the will of the Father. And if we receive the Word and act upon it, without judging it, we will find that our action is done in such a way that whatever we do fits in, accomplishes its goal, with a greater sense of having achieved the target than we would have if we had worked on our own level of awareness. Now, I don't say that you have to go into meditation to go to the grocery store. And there are many things in this world that you do that do not involve major decisions. But at the level where decisions are necessary, this is the level to work. It will unknot all of the ramifications that you may face in making a decision. It may give you answers that are very delicate. And when you have problems that you can't solve and don't know the answers to, that seem unsolvable, this is where you go. Nothing is without an answer. And nothing is without the inevitability of a miracle if necessary. Miracles are not miracles to God, they're just routine. Every healing of the Christ came from the Spirit of God, revealing not a healing, not a boy lifted out of a tomb, not a girl lifted out of a comatose nature, but revealing the perfection of that individual. What we had seen was the error. There was nobody there like we had seen. The perfection of each individual was revealed through Jesus' consciousness. And in seeing the perfection of each individual, that appeared as a healing. When you see the perfection through the inner method of an individual, it will appear as a healing. Because that person is not a person. That is the Spirit of God there. And you're seeing that as a person. When it's restored by the higher spirit to being a spirit, it then appears to you as a perfect person. Everyone everywhere conceals perfection. Even a dying man. Some of the healings you've seen and heard about are surprising to many of us because we don't know how it's accomplished. We just don't know why. But we do know that when the person is an open consciousness and has not an army of concepts, that somehow spirit gets there so quickly that instantaneous healings happen that way. We've all seen the instantaneous type of healing and we can't understand it. How does an individual whose heart is going through this blood spasm, and in 2 minutes he won't be here anymore, and the snap of a finger practically, suddenly the blood stops. There's no bleeding. He's right. He feels good. And he's an old man, but it doesn't matter. Feels fine. He can rest now. How does it happen? Nobody does it, but somebody stands open to the Spirit. And he fortunately stands open to the Spirit because he's near unconscious at the time and he has no blockage. He's not thinking. how terrible this is. He's past all that thinking. So we do have miracles, but they are nothing but the perfection of the individual showing forth when there is no human thought to block it. I'm glad you have an opportunity to dwell on the inner, because you will learn from that you can go past insolvable riddles in your life, and that no matter what stands in your way, it's only an illusion. And when you are able to get out of the human thought, which you may not think you have, but when you get out of thought and stand in the secret place of the Most High, the Spirit, having nothing to block its expression in the outer, functions in you in the inner, and then lo and behold, what appears outer is the expression of perfect Spirit in you. And there is nothing that cannot be done. There's no exception. And many times we can't reach that level, but the potential is always present. Now, if you think you have something wrong right now, I want you to join me in this inner expression. There are people here who are also in the inner, and we want to touch your consciousness as you become aware of the inner spirit and yield to it. As you learn that you are as accessible to Spirit as anyone in the universe. In fact, you are. I am. And from anywhere in the universe, something can come to you expressing its perfection. There is nothing that is beyond possibility. Blessed are the peacemakers. When we establish the realm of peace, the Spirit flows. Wherever it finds divine peace, it flows. Now, we have gone through this exercise only because it is necessary for you to know that it is possible for you to experience the Spirit where you stand. And when you experience the Spirit, it should teach you that you are not a material mortal being, because Spirit is not flowing where matter is. There is no spirit and matter. If you have the flow of spirit within you, then you must realize that I am not a material being. And as you realize it, you are approaching the level where you will find eternity is within your grasp. This may be the first time that we've had a 2-hour meditation, but I think we can easily do it. And a lot of good will come from it. Now don't despair if you haven't been able to hold it for 2 hours. Many people cannot at first. But you will live in this consciousness someday. You will actually live in the consciousness of spirit, which means what is now called meditation in the human sphere. But you will be living in that way, in that method, normally. So it won't hurt you if you fail to develop the full consciousness at once. It's important to become used to the fact that you must reach within and reach the Father within, and that the Christ of you being one with the Father, that's your weapon. That's what Revelation was all about. That's what the woman gave birth to. She gave birth to the Christ within, and she found the Christ, and she can commune with the Christ and give her life to the Christ, and the Christ can give her life. And that's what you're doing. The Christ is the go-between, the one we go to, who goes to the Father. And then as we go to the Christ, we learn that we are the Christ. And we go to the Father. And I don't know any better place to go. I repeat, don't be concerned if you cannot get the full measure of silence and inner receptivity. Just your trying to is a step toward it. Everyone has difficulty at one time or another, especially people who have never done it before. But this is your opportunity to learn to do it. Well, I probably should let you stay in it, but we'll step out so that we can continue a lesson on this sphere. It's rather strange, but what you don't hear on the tape is probably the most productive. And everybody buys tapes to hear things. Now, where are you going to receive the word from? It may come from anywhere. It comes in the infinite spirit. It may localize as someone in Duluth, Minnesota, talking to you, or an idea that you will put into use in Duluth, Minnesota. Or it may be Pakistan. It can be anywhere. Space is nothing to the spirit. The spirit doesn't even recognize space. The infinite is where the spirit operates instantly. And you really are in touch, though you may not know it, with anywhere in infinity, instantly. I've been in touch with many areas of the world as you meditate, and the strangest things do happen. You contact a person you didn't know on a battleship somewhere in the Pacific, and you didn't know he was there or it was there. But he's the one you have to get to, and somehow you do. And that makes something else possible, and all of that connection in the infinite. It starts in the infinite and the invisible and ends up as a connection with a person in a battleship. You don't know why or how, but it does. The invisible intelligence of the spirit is so incredible. And when we hear that it is omniscient, we discover that it truly is. And because of omnipresence, it is omniscient everywhere. And because of omnipotence, it can send whatever it wants to anywhere. You see how all things collaborate instantaneously. Someone in Pakistan can be healed a second by someone who is in the spirit, in contact with truth. Whatever passes from the spirit to Pakistan is certainly not here, but the same thing happens. The person who you meditate for is next to you, right next to you, closer than next to you, nearer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, instantly. It's sort of like a telephone company with all these wires crossing each other. The telephone company might be a sort of a duplicate of what the infinite spirit is, but a duplicate in a very small way. Now it's necessary for this to transfer to you, so that you have access to infinity. And your access to infinity is by the knowledge realized in consciousness that before Abraham was, I am. And I am is that infinity realized in consciousness. You may be drawing ideas from philosophers who lived years ago. You may find the secret of something in medicine that no one knows about. Instantaneously it comes to you from the invisible. You are in a position, when you have realized your I am consciousness, for all infinity to be operating through you. Nothing less than infinity can operate through you, because infinity is all there is. And it's one. It's one, so that it does operate as a unit. hope this is opening up to some of you who have wondered what your capacities are. Your capacities are infinite. No one's capacity is greater than yours, because everyone's capacity is infinite. In fact, what we have touched upon is just a little phase of these infinite capacities. In Revelation, this is not openly discussed, but the I Am consciousness is discussed. It is very rarely fully understood, and I probably don't understand it fully either. But the point of it is, you can't understand infinity. It eludes you. You can open to it, and it can increase and increase and increase until you know that you are the channel through which infinity operates. That may be a little higher than you had wanted to operate. You may have felt all I wanted was a little spiritual understanding, but there's no such thing as a little spiritual understanding. There's infinity, and there's matter. The two. There's one which is real, and there's the other which is a level of consciousness which the human race has held on to. And the realization of I am is going to lift you above the human race, the mortal race, the limited race, the race that still insists on digging its grave. And as you attain these levels, you see, you're stepping out of that which is going to find a grave. I mean, there's no sense in living that way when this is available. It's just a matter of constantly opening up, constantly going within, and letting the Christ of your being be the thinker, be the body. Slowly you're leaving your body, you're leaving your mind, and you're doing it for a greater good. It would be wise to look through the Bible, preferably in the book of John, and pick up the various times that Jesus uses the phrase I am. See what happens next. And you may have missed a big point that now becomes apparent to you. He's referring to a consciousness that he's trying to tell you can be your consciousness, and you've got to work at it. That's all there is to it. You've got to work at it. I've given you only one way. And you'll find the undercurrent of take no thought is probably the way you get started in working at it, because as you take no thought, Christ will take thought where you are. More and more of what we ought to do becomes apparent to us, and we're going to learn more and more of what we ought to do as we go and find those passages in the Bible which are meaningful to us. We're not going to be left as we started out. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And that means you are going to make it. Now, there aren't many people needed to dwell with the Father. You don't have to have a tape group of 10 people or 5. You can have a tape group of 1. Whoever gets into the Father's kingdom has to do it on his own. It won't be a group effort. Each individual must walk in unescorted. And the only way he'll walk into that kingdom is in his invisible self. You won't just walk in and say, "Here I am." You'll have to learn how to get down to invisibility first. And that means losing your humanhood completely. Sort of paradox. But that's the beauty of the kingdom. There's no mortal who's ever lived in it. I repeat, you are immortal. And that should be your song of the Lamb. Again and again in the silence, reiterating the truth that you are immortal, and as you reiterate it, other facets of your immortality will become known to you. There will be a day when mortality is almost a dirty word. Well, lots of love. I'll see you in the morning.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into our channel. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like button below. It really helps us out. And why not share this video with your friends? Spread the word and help us reach more people. Lastly, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video from us. Thanks for watching and see you next time.